Welcome everyone to episode 2 of the Batman vs. James Bond show. I am your host, Brian Thomas. Thanks for joining me. This is the show where we discuss everything related to Batman and James Bond movies, news, trailers, scores, reviews, matchups, and more. First off, I'd like to thank everyone who tuned into the first episode. Welcome back. And for all you new listeners out there, welcome. Nice to have you. Before we get started, just a few things I'd like to mention. First, number one, please like the Batman vs. James Bond show on Facebook, and be sure to follow the show on Twitter at Batman vs. Bond. The next piece of news, or I don't want to say news, you probably know this if you are a Batman fan. We are less than 2 weeks until Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice premieres. Woohoo! I do hope that you bought your tickets. I did as soon as they came out. You know, I guess I don't want to say that there might be a line that night because, you know, it is the first time Batman versus Superman has actually, you know, been on the big screen. I don't know if it's going to be as big as something like Star Wars. I mean, the new thing obviously now is advanced tickets. It never hurts to buy them. You know, the problem is, at least in the Maryland area, depending on where you listen, there's still not such thing as pre-assigned seats in every movie theater, like a stadium, you go to a concert or whatever kind of show that you go to. That's not a bad thing. It's a good thing sometimes too, but you know, it's still old school. You have to hurry up, get to the movie theater almost a half hour in advance, especially on premiere night. Because this is such a big movie, you know, you could buy your tickets, but I think it's almost to the point where the movie theaters almost just sell out as many tickets as they can, and if you're late, then too bad. You know, you snooze, you lose. But I still believe it's not a bad idea to buy your tickets, but I do, you know, I think it's common sense. Get there early, wear your Batman attire, whatever, but, you know, just be prepared because I have a feeling it's going to be quite a long line. Main thing I want to let you guys know is that because Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice is going to be premiering, I have planned to do a 2-part episode review breakdown of the movie that weekend. By the time the movie comes out, I'm going to see it that Thursday night, and who knows, I might see it again another time that weekend. But I would like to do a review episode, non-spoiler episode, and what I'm going to do is on the other episode, part 2, is I'm going to do a full spoiler. So please stay tuned. That'll actually probably kick it off with my reviews. I don't want to go into the others just because there's not enough time for me to watch all these Batman movies and get into it because so much news has been breaking. You know, we have a lot to get to tonight or this morning whenever you are tuning into the show. So let's hop into some news. Big news story this week is, and you know, there's a whole... Let me get this off my chest first. With Batman v Superman coming out, you're going to see, if you follow social media, and like I said, like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. If you follow social media, the biggest thing right now is for a lot of websites to just break news stories that, you know, oh, spoiler, so-and-so, Zack Snyder said this, that here's a key scene that happens and whatever. If you haven't listened to any of my other previous shows that I've done, and I've done a couple before, but my biggest gripe is always spoilers and how websites or, you know, vlogs, whatever you listen to, they always, you know, try to be the late breaking of, you know, such story. When I do a news story, I try to find the news stories more that, you know, have been confirmed before I break them to you. Just, for example, the J.K. Simmons being Commissioner Gordon, that was confirmed by numerous sources. You know, I consider it like a good source, say Collider.com, Entertainment Weekly, Hollywood Reporter, Variety. Those are all good sources. And as long as all those sources have confirmed that, then I will break it on this show. So, you know, if you happen to hear rumors, you know, tweet me. I'll be anxious. I probably might not know it by then, but, you know, just giving my 2 cents on news stories and spoilers anyway, and it won't be the last of it. So let me just say that. So Ben Affleck has been coming out with, you know, lots and lots of interviews. He's, you know, you got to make your ways around doing the press, and, you know, he needs good press, of course, you know, because everybody's worried, especially the nerds out there, are saying, oh, well, it's Ben Affleck. He's, such and such. He's a pretty boy. He never, go back to Jiggly, go back to even Armageddon or whatever. He's not a good actor. He shouldn't be playing Batman. It's like, okay, well, he is definitely done a complete 180 since then. So, even if he did play Daredevil, which was, it was all right. It was okay. I think the big thing right now, especially on also social media, is this is the year of second chances, whether it's Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, whether it's, Ben Affleck as Batman, so give him a chance and we'll see how he does. Other people are saying, oh, he's going to do better than Christian Bale. He's going to do better than Michael Keaton. You're like, it's a different interpretation. So you're comparing apples and oranges. So just throwing my 2 cents out on that as well. So Ben Affleck was talking about like why he chose to, come on to this Batman v Superman project. When he was speaking with Entertainment Weekly, he says it was actually Zack Snyder's overall vision for the DC cinematic universe that won him over. Quoted, "What I wanted was to create a Batman that was sort of at the end of his rope physically, psychologically, and emotionally. A guy who was beaten down by the world, a guy who was a little bit more of a slugger, who is gray in his hair, who has questioned whether the whole journey that he lived as Batman was in fact worth it, given that he was not superhero, but now had to face a super being which none of the other Batmans have had to confront in the movie's world. It's an interesting thing to combine because in the Nolan Batmans, which are defining Batmans, so magnificent, there are no other superheroes. It's just this guy. He never has to reconcile who he is with this idea that there are all other people who can do these supernatural things." Ben Affleck also went on saying that, Batman's reactions to Superman's presence, we know what this is going to be. This is, everybody keeps saying that this is not an official Man of Steel sequel, that it eventually will happen, a Man of Steel 2. This is more going to be Batman's movie, and you can obviously see that from the marketing. It's not an easy task to follow up, at least in my opinion, with the Dark Knight trilogy because everybody's got that engraved in their head. The fact that it's only been just under 4 years since Batman has been last on screen, it's now up to the studio Warner Brothers to kind of say, okay, well, you kind of have to forget, flush it out of your mind that, Christian Bale is no longer Batman. Ben Affleck is our Batman. That's who we have faith in. That's who we trust. So now what the studio has to do is say also, okay, well, kind of not forget, everybody knows the story of Batman, but in this Batman universe or in this DC cinematic universe, Batman was retired possibly, and the idea of a character, an alien with superpowers can exist in here. So it's going to be a different type of Batman, which makes it more interesting. Affleck says that he thinks Batman's reaction to Superman's presence and the collateral damage that ensued at the end of Man of Steel is entirely reasonable and in some ways relatable, and also spoke about the cost of being Batman, specifically regarding the death of Robin. He's bitterly disappointed, quoted in the past, that he's lost the guy who fought by his side. The character's death must have been devastating to him, and he suffered. We get the sense that he suffered a lot of devastating losses before this movie even starts. And, that's another thing we want to address here is that, okay, if you've, never ever heard of Batman before, which shame on you, then you wouldn't know that Batman's parents were killed. Like we said last week or in my episode was that, everybody knows that majority of people know of how Batman's parents died. They were in an alley. They got shot, whether it was the Joker or, I keep forgetting that guy's name. And sometimes I'm not good with names and it's just been one of those days. So I apologize. Anyway, though, so whoever it is in this movie, in this adaptation of the new DC cinematic universe that kills Batman's parents, we obviously have seen in the trailers and TV spots that we're going to see this again. Do we need to see this again? No, but it kind of just adds to what makes Batman Batman. Now, what's interesting is they're saying that, okay, there was a Robin, but in this movie or in this universe is that Robin has already died. I think that puts an interesting spin, not just because I don't like Robin. I know, whatever, shame on me. I think it adds just more fuel to the fire, if you will. And now you have Superman coming in, and him fighting Zod, going into Wayne Tower and whatever it is, and it gives Batman even more reason to be pissed off. So I'm really excited about this. We never really got into this before about my thoughts on Ben Affleck as Batman. Maybe we did. I was even watching a couple movies of Ben Affleck this past weekend, and we'll just say take Armageddon. Yes, I watched Armageddon. Yes, I can like some Armageddon or some Michael Bay films. Besides the point, though, at that time when that movie came out, it was in the mid-90s, I'm thinking I would have never crossed my mind that Ben Affleck would be our Batman right at this time or in the late future. I mean, if you look at his career, like we said, it's just like some of those movies that he used to do, if you want to throw Daredevil in there, why not? Because, hey, he was a superhero before. But, take what Ben Affleck has done in his more recent career, directing, even acting. If you've ever seen Gone Girl, if you've seen Argo, if you've seen The Town, those can make his case that this guy really does have his head on strong. Whether it was, reports out there saying, oh, well, he helped kind of rewrite certain parts in this. That could be true. I don't know about the rumors about him writing it when he was in costume. I'd actually like to see some footage of that because I think that would make for some good outtakes. Another thing that they were talking about in this article was the fact that the screenwriter, now the movie Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice was originally written by David S. Goyer, who penned all the Dark Knight trilogy along with Christopher Nolan. He did do this. He did write the original script for this, but it was also by Chris Terrio. Now, you might not know that name, but he is an Oscar winner. He did write Argo, who he coincidentally worked with Ben Affleck on that and directed it, which won Best Picture back in 2014, I believe it was. Anyway, though, he said that did help him influence his decision. And, this, like he said, the ideas of Zack Snyder in there as well, just taking this to a different kind of Batman. So, once again, it's kind of hard to go through all these news stories saying, hey, which ones are going to be, true, not true, rumors, and so forth. Like we said, a lot of sites like to do that, and I'm honestly not down with that. I mean, I like, reading an interesting story and hopefully hearing some actual credible news. But I'd like your opinion. If you want to hit me up on Twitter or Facebook, let me know what are your thoughts on Ben Affleck as Batman. I mean, we heard about this a couple years ago and so forth. So, who would you have picked if it wasn't Ben Affleck to be Batman? That would be the question I'd like to know. So, moving on here, like I said, lots of stories to get to. An interesting tidbit that came out this week, and you can take it for what it's worth. Zack Snyder, director of Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, came out with the story saying that he actually wanted Christian Bale from the Dark Knight trilogy to be in the DCU. The interesting thing was that he didn't want him to be Batman. So I'm like scratching my head when I'm reading this article. I'm like, okay, so you want to have a previous Batman and a new Batman, but wouldn't that throw everybody off? And I mean, he didn't obviously want him to play Batman. It was just a brief talk about it. He said, I just wanted to hire Christian to play another part to make that obvious. Christian could play like Alfred in age makeup. No, of course not. But you know what I mean? Even people at the studio would say, who are you getting from the other movies? And I was like, hey, come on, guys. Let's all understand. It's a different world. So I think it's just it's an interesting thing. I hate the idea of it because, like we said before in this last story, everything is so fresh right now with the Dark Knight trilogy, so it would be almost throwing everybody off saying, oh, wait a minute, is he old Batman? And is Ben Affleck really supposed to be a different character? And, I don't like it at all, honestly, but I mean, it's not unheard of, I guess, for another character or for a character who played in a previous movie to do kind of like a cameo. I don't think Adam West would ever come into the Dark Knight trilogy. I don't foresee him coming into this movie. I'm not saying it's not possible. It sure can happen, and it's happened in many other movies before too. It's like saying right now if J.K. Simmons was to, come in and play into the next Spider-Man universe and play J. Jonah Jameson again. Well, obviously now that he's playing Commissioner Gordon, it's not going to happen, but I mean, it's not unheard of. So, that leads me, actually, that's what I want to bring up. When Batman, they were still getting the Man of Steel new DC cinematic universe, and after Dark Knight Rises had just ended, everybody's like, well, who's going to be Batman? Can Batman or Man of Steel exist in this, Christopher Nolan universe? It's like, No, it can't, because it was such a grounded approach that there was no superpowers in that. So, and that's another thing, just because, the biggest thing is obviously right now, hashtag, who will win, Batman or Superman? If you threw Superman into the Nolan trilogy, it wouldn't make any sense, and it would actually just kind of crush everything that Nolan tried to do for that franchise to make it such a, realistic kind of film. It wouldn't have been the right thing to do, just even to bring Christian Bale back as Batman, even if this was like, a new trilogy, or just him as a new Batman, just because, I don't know. I just never liked the idea. So once again, share your thoughts, let me know what you think about that and so forth. And yeah, so that's it for the Batman news. Now on to James Bond news. It was kind of interesting week for news, because there was there was some talk out there about this next guy, and he does fall into like the superhero genre, at least on the Marvel side, MCU that is. If you had never heard of the name Tom Hiddleston, then you probably will start to, because his name is actually being thrown out as playing or portraying the next James Bond after Daniel Craig. Tom Hiddleston played Loki in the Avengers movies. He played it in Thor. Everybody, thought he did a great job with it. I thought he did a good job with it. I'm not saying he's like my favorite actor. That's the only work that I've seen of his. Right now, Hiddleston is starring in like a BBC adaptation of something called The Night Manager. But he came out with this quote saying that playing Bond would be an extraordinary opportunity if it ever came knocking. I'm a huge fan of the series. We went to see Spectre when we were shooting Skull Island in Hawaii. Skull Island's the new King Kong movie. Take that for what it's worth. I simply love the theme tune, the tropes, and the mythology. I love the whole thing. If it ever came knocking, it would be an extraordinary opportunity. So throw that into the names of possible James Bond actors. There's also, they had a poll in this, it was actually on Yahoo Movies, and there's another name in here, and he's a very hot actor, and he does go actually into the Batman universe because he played I Will Break Him, Bane. Yeah, that guy. That's my Bane impression for the night. I'm here all week. Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy, who just recently came out of Mad Max, once again wearing a mask. I don't know what it is about that guy. He was also in he was actually just nominated for an Oscar for the Revenant. He was playing over there with Leonardo DiCaprio, who, trivia, for you trivia fans out there, it was rumored at the time, right before The Dark Knight Rises was being made, that Leo was being considered for the Riddler. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I would have liked to seen, I don't know, it would have been an interesting take for Leo to play, at least in the Dark Knight trilogy. I can't see him as the Riddler because all I have stuck in my mind right now is Jim Carrey as the Riddler from Batman Forever. But he had worked with Nolan before, so it's very possible, but, who knows? Anyway, though, back to the Tom Hardy story. There was a poll that was done actually saying that Tom Hardy had a massive 26% of the 1,292 votes cast who they would like to see play James Bond next. Tom Hiddleston, going back to him, he came in second with 19%. Idris Elba was in third, taking 14.8%, and Benedict Cumberbatch came in 10th place on the list. Now, this is going to be going on forever, folks. Like I said, we have no idea what's going to be going on with the next Bond movie, Bond 25. We can only wait and see, if Daniel Craig's going to come back. He said he would do it for the money. I don't like that kind of attitude, but I mean, by that time, even Sean Connery was just I would say he was phoning it in near the end of the James Bonds. If you go back really and look at something like You Only Live Twice, or especially Diamonds Are Forever, after he came back, after George Lazenby, okay, he's here for a paycheck, and he's just kind of nonchalantly playing James Bond, and you know what? I'm not all for that. If you're finished with the franchise, then, we appreciate everything you did, but, move along and let somebody who's real passionate about it, that can bring something new to the franchise instead of the same old thing, and it gets cornier as it goes on. And Roger Moore, I believe, did the same thing too. So for somebody like either Tom Hardy or I guess Tom Hiddleston, I'm thinking. I really am. I mean, you have to. Like I said last week, you can't go with the whole. Oh, does he? He doesn't look like James Bond. It'd be like, okay. And I meant to put this on the Instagram, and I didn't. It was just like, okay, well, if you look at the James Bond covers, he's just this black shadow half the time, and it's more like imaging on the Bond girls. So to say if an actor looks like James Bond or not, that's whatever. Nobody looks like James Bond. I mean, we could even say Ben Affleck looks like James Bond because he, has a fresh cut shave. He has a tuxedo on. Christian Bale, he could have looked like that. I mean, it could be a whole bunch of different people. But, if we're looking at, what's possible, I mean, yeah, they're going to probably try to find a British or Australian actor, probably white, Caucasian, possibly in his mid to late 30s if they want to go with a younger Bond. And the reason for that is just so they can at least get 3 or 4 films out of him. So and these 2 names are definitely names that people know. And I've also heard that, this is what I've heard, is that the ladies go crazy over Tom Hiddleston. So I guess, that maybe that's how, the Avengers movies are making so much money also because of the female population, because they just love how, Tom Hiddleston carries himself. I have no idea. I don't know how people feel about Tom Hardy so much. And I know the guys, or at least from a male perspective, he's got that more gritty kind of tough aspect to him. So, I could see either one. Like I said, it all depends. I mean, on, both of them seem like they're very talented actors. So, I guess we'll keep, moving on from there and just keep hoping for some kind of new news. I just want them, at least in the next couple of months, just say, hey, Daniel Craig, are you doing it or are you not doing it? So we can finally move on from this. Anywho, we'll see. This news came out, and this is some sad news this week also. For any of you fans out there of the classic James Bonds, especially if you are a huge Bond fan, you'll know this name, Ken Adam. Actually, Sir Ken Adam. He was a production designer and is famous for his work on Dr. No and at least 7 other James Bond films. He died at the age of 95. He died on this past Thursday, at his home in London after a short time at the hospital. His famous sets included movies like we said, Dr. No. Let's see. Sorry, excuse me. No, it wasn't Dr. No. It was actually Dr. Strangelove. Correct me. But yes, there was also Dr. No, famous for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. He worked all the way up to Moonraker as well, too. He was widely regarded as British cinema's, how do they quote this? Doyen of production design. So he was really well known. So safe home to you, Sir Ken Adam. Thank you for all you did for the Bond franchise with all your sets. You go online, and I'll try to post if I haven't posted the link, I think I already have, but I can post it again, or I'll retweet it. Just if you go back and look at the sets that this guy designed, You Only Live Twice. And the specific set for that is Classic Bond. It's, Dr. Ernest Salvador Blofeld's hideout. And I believe this was in Japan, and it was inside the volcano. They're hiding the space shuttle in there, and it's where Sean Connery, James Bond 007 sneaks in there and so forth. And it was an amazing set to think this guy created that set. Then if you look at The Spy Who Loved Me, which was really similar in a way, almost like a remake unofficially, he was doing it for Roger Moore's James Bond at the time. Instead of the hideout volcano, was actually on a big tanker ship. Same idea, submarines, being hidden in there as well too. Moonraker, that was at a different time for James Bond, or at least in movies, because it was just coming off of the Star Wars, the original Star Wars, A New Hope, 1977. So Moonraker came out in 1979. So, he's trying to create all these space sets, and, that led to the whole, maybe Bond has gone a little too far, but at the same time, a whole space station set. Wow, that is so hard to say. Space station set. Gotta laugh at yourself sometimes, guys. That whole set was a really interesting set, even though it wasn't my favorite Bond movie. Mad props to him for all he did. So like I said, safe home to him. This one is also another sad piece of news. George Martin, if you don't know that name, it took me a minute too. He is sometimes, or was known as, the fifth Beatle. He is best known for signing the Beatles to EMI, and as a producer, he helped shape their sound. He actually was working with the Beatles and many artists. He produced 2 James Bond themes, coincidentally. The first, which was one of my favorites, sung by Shirley Bassey, Goldfinger. He also produced Live and Let Die, which was written and performed by Paul McCartney and the Wings. It's a shame because those 2 themes are so iconic. I want to go back into this a little later in the show, but just it's something about a theme song, especially in a James Bond movie, that makes it iconic. Especially for the fans out there. I mean, when you look at a James Bond movie, what do you usually have 9 times out of 10? You have a gun barrel, you have this opening sequence of some kind, sometimes funny, sometimes more action-oriented, whatever. But then what's the biggest thing? It's always that theme song. It's always that 3.5-minute theme song on there. And when the theme song, especially released now, like whether it was Adele or Sam Smith, the biggest thing is, what's the reaction going to be to it? Because that kind of usually what a composer does, and I'm looking at the great John Barry. You could say David Arnold. He tried doing this as well. Other artists have tried to do it as well. They take the theme that's being played in that. So if you have Goldfinger, which goes dun dun dun, and that whole theme is being played throughout the whole movie, and then weaving into the James Bond theme. Same thing with Live and Let Die. It had that. Trying to think how that goes. Dun 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 dun. Dun, dun. So if you remember Live and Let Die, when, like, say, the boat chase, they had that whole theme going in through there at the very end, and when Bond, tricks the guy and throws like the gasoline in his face, and all of a sudden the boat goes up the chute and then explodes, that was kind of like the action music to it. So, I have to look this up, but I mean, just the top James Bond themes that are out there. I mean, Goldfinger and Live and Let Die, I'd say those are probably the top 5 that people will know. So, once again, safe home to you, sir. Thank you for all you did in the movie industry and for music in general. So, that about wraps it up for news. Let's move into something a little different this time. I didn't have a chance to do it before. There will be no trailers this week because there isn't really anything new coming out. I mean, there might be an occasional TV spot, but not so much that we can break down. Let's move into music scores. All right, music scores. So, we talked about the themes. We were just talking about it, at least with the James Bond world, but I wanted to make sure that I did touch on this because obviously before I created the show, we have, a whole new Batman theme and so forth. So, and before I forget, I want to make sure that, we take, we might not be able to do a poll of this, but you can at least send in your thoughts on it to me. You can actually email it if you want to. It's at batmanvjamesbond@gmail.com, Twitter, Facebook, either way, just let me know what you think. I want to go through really quickly about the Batman themes that are out there. Now, like we said, we all have our Batman. It's something about the Batman theme, and same with the James Bond theme. It's just iconic, especially in the movie industry. It's got to be, one of the most classic themes out there, but there's other interpretations of it too. So, we are going to try this. And what this is, as I get this started here, got to wait for YouTube to warm up, because of the internet speed. So if you're hearing this right now, you know what this is. I'll give you 5 seconds to guess what this is. Which Batman theme is this? 5. You see, I gave you too much time. Yeah, that's right. This is the 1989 Batman theme by Danny Elfman, and something about this movie, or just this score, even if it wasn't your favorite theme or favorite movie, this is still the defining Batman theme. Hold on, let's listen to it. Yeah, that is a solid theme if there wasn't any. That is classic Danny Elfman. I'll let that play out for a second, but to me, that has always been the Batman theme. And, if you ever want to get pumped out when you're exercising or just for something at work or whatever, turn on that theme, and boy, you'll be ready to take out the Joker in no time at all. So after the whole Batman, or at least the Tim Burton Batmans, went away and they decided to move in a different direction, they brought in this guy. His name escapes me right about now, but it's the Batman Forever theme, and it's a different theme. Let's see if I can get... There it is. Let you listen to it. So a different kind of Batman theme. Not my favorite, not my least favorite. At the time when I heard it, I was like, because I was still trying to get used to the whole lighter Batman or just Val Kilmer's Batman. And for the movie itself, I shared my thoughts. And for those of you who didn't tune in last week, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, not my favorite Batman films. But, if they're on, I will watch it just because I need a good laugh. The theme itself was an interesting take on it. It did work for the movies. If anything, I think it was more fun and lighthearted. It didn't take itself as seriously as, say, the Danny Elfman Batman theme. So I think it's probably going to come in as my least favorite. The next one, you've all have heard by now, at least, I hope. Yeah, that is by Mr. Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard. We'll let that play just for a few more minutes in the background, but this is probably one of my favorite Batman themes. I can never decide if I like this more than the Danny Elfman theme or not. If it's not tied, it'd be a close second, but it was, it's a hard task to recreate a theme for a beloved character. While we're sticking with the Batman themes anyway, Hans Zimmer, did all three of them. James Newton Howard only stuck around for Batman Begins and Dark Knight. He didn't do Dark Knight Rises, even though half of his music was still in there. The hardest task, though, I would imagine for a composer is just to create a new theme, and especially something that's catchy that people are going to know within like 30 seconds. Oh, that's the Batman theme. That's the James Bond theme. I remember that. But, now it's because we're having such reboots, or all these reboots and recreations of famous characters that we know, that, it's got to be a big struggle for a composer to, create something. So, I love that theme, and it's very iconic now. I think most people, at least if you're a movie fan, you'll know that's the Batman theme. Now, the new one that I wanted to make sure that we did have time for in here, it's called a Batman Suite. So Hans Zimmer, like we said, he did the Dark Knight trilogy. Now he's still in the DC universe, but he did the Man of Steel soundtrack, which is by far one of my favorite, most recent scores out there. It's what's great about it is that it does differ from the Batman theme, but it still has that recognizable Hans Zimmer kind of panache to it, if you will. And he actually had to take over also for John Williams, who created the original Superman theme. Dun, 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 dun. There we go. But when he was, when news came around that they were going to do a Batman v Superman, they're like, Hans Zimmer's like, I can't do that again because I put everything I had to it into the, Batman theme from the Nolan trilogy. So he asked for some help from his buddy Junkie XL. Don't ask me what his real name is because, he just is known as Junkie XL. I'll find out his name if you really wish. But this guy actually just did the soundtrack or the score for Deadpool. He did it last year for Mad Max. The, whether it's, the Batman theme, the Danny Elfman Batman theme, it always has those iconic horns in there, whether it's the Dun, 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 dun. Then you have the Batman Forever theme, which is like, well, you heard it anyway. So the horns are always a big thing, something about that with the Batman theme. So I guess he kind of wanted to keep that in here. This sounds like a very dark theme, so at least they're not going the route of a Batman Forever. Sounds more like they're kind of keeping a trend with the Batman Begins. And you hear the loud thumping drums, whatever they're called in there. That is reminiscent to me of the Mad Max score too. So I'll make sure I put this out there for you guys to listen to. Let me know right now, at least from the top three, Batman 1989, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, or, the whole Dark Knight trilogy. What was your favorite Batman theme? What do you think, what do you think the better one is? What is your least favorite and so forth? And what do you think of the new Batman v Superman Batman theme? Or at least what you heard. So, on to the death match of the week. All right. Now it's time for my favorite segment of the show called the Death Match of the Week. In this segment, I'm going to take and create a scenario, some people will call it fan fiction, where Batman will be battling it out versus James Bond, and you guys will vote for the winner. So last week's scenario was, in case you missed it, Pierce Brosnan was battling it out versus Michael Keaton's Batman in Gotham City. We said that, Pierce was investigating Access Chemicals, and, he happened to be going into Michael Keaton's turf, and, Batmobile, versus the Aston Martin 1964. The more I thought about it, that I'm going to have to give this one in favor of Batman, Michael Keaton, because that Batmobile, if you go back and look at Goldfinger, that Aston Martin wasn't quite indestructible. I believe the Batmobile from '89 was almost indestructible, and I think it had a few more tools that would probably win in the battle. And, if it comes to hand-to-hand combat, I think I have no doubt that, Michael Keaton would definitely lay an ass whooping on Pierce. So sorry for the fans out there. So let me know what you think. This week I created another scenario, and let's see what you guys think about this one. Your scenario for Death Match of the Week is... So, Sean Connery, for you Sean Connery fans out there, if you remembered the movie You Only Live Twice, Sean Connery was, it was kind of like searching about the whole disappearance of space shuttles and so forth, and when he was investigating in Japan, he asked for Q's help, and Q delivered this wonderful little gadget called Little Nelly. Now, for you Batman fans that don't know this, Little Nelly was a little mini helicopter from hell, if you will. It had rocket launchers. It had aerial mines on it. It had machine guns. It had a flamethrower. So we'll just say that Sean Connery is flying. He's still in Japan at that time, whatever, or even present day, whatever you will. He's investigating, and all of a sudden he is being ambushed by Val Kilmer. And Val Kilmer is dressed as Batman. We'll make this a nighttime scenario. And Val Kilmer is actually in the Batplane. Now, this is the Batplane from Batman Forever. So you got to think back to this, okay? And, he ambushes it. He ambushes Sean Connery. It always ends up being something about Batman ambushing. I think that's his style. So I want to know what you guys think. Who would win? Keep in mind that we never really saw Val Kilmer's Batplane do anything in there. We can only assume that maybe he had machine guns, but I'm going to say in this one that he doesn't. All he's doing is just flying a plane around. So who's going to have the edge? Is it going to be Sean Connery and Little Nelly, or Val Kilmer's Batman in the Batplane? So that about wraps it up for this episode of the Batman versus James Bond show. Within the week, actually, we got approved by iTunes. I say we, and I mean you and I, because this is a joint team effort. You guys make this show happen. I love doing this, and as long as you keep tuning in, I'm going to keep doing it. We're on iTunes now, but we're still on Spreaker as well. So make sure that you rate this show and leave a comment. Please leave a 5-star review. Let me know how I'm doing. Follow me on Twitter at Batman vs. Bond, and like me on the Batman vs. James Bond Facebook page. Like James Bond, I will return next week with an all-new show. Thank you for listening, and until the next time, guys, peace out and have a great week. Bye-bye.